Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets are reportedly at an impasse in regards to his contract extension, which means he could be a free agent this summer. The Clippers and Knicks are reportedly interested, but also, so are LeBron James's Los Angeles Lakers. Is a reunion possible? And should any of those teams risk it all for Kyrie? Since Kevin Durant and Irving agreed to join the Nets in the summer of 2019, almost nothing has gone to plan. Durant and Irving spent their first season in Brooklyn sidelined while recovering from injuries. The 2020-2021 season was probably their only bright spot. Durant and Irving were dynamic, with both having all-star seasons, while Irving joined an exclusive list of 9 other players in NBA history to have a 50-40-90 season. And yes, the Nets traded in their chips for James Harden to create a star-studded trio. Despite that, injuries prevailed, with Harden dealing with a nagging hamstring injury, while Irving suffered an ankle sprain in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, as the Nets were eliminated in 7 games by the eventual champion Milwaukee Bucks. Things only got worse in the 2020-2022 season. Harden was seemingly still dealing with hamstring issues, and Irving entered the season refusing to comply with New York City's vaccine mandate and only played in 29 games. Harden grew frustrated and was eventually traded at the deadline in a deal that brought Ben Simmons and Seth Curry to Brooklyn. Just like that, the Durant, Harden, Irving trio was over. After playing just 16 games together, Irving and Durant were mollywopped in the first round at the hands of the Boston Celtics, which leads us to an all-important offseason. After the Nets' playoff elimination, it seemed that Irving was leaning towards sticking around, saying that he didn't plan on going anywhere. But now, that doesn't seem to be the case. Irving has until June 29th to decide whether he'd like to opt into his final year of his deal with the Nets, worth just under $37 million, or opt out and sign a 5-year, $250 million max contract extension with Brooklyn. But from the Nets' point of view, it's easy to understand why they don't want to cough up that money. In 3 years in Brooklyn, Irving has missed 113 of a potential 216 regular season games. He has been a part-time member of the organization at best, and Nets GM Sean Marks wants players who are committed to playing full-time.
I think we know what we're looking for. We're looking for guys that want to come in here, be part of something bigger than themselves, play selfless, play team basketball, and be available. And that goes not only for Kyrie, but for everybody here.
So what options do they have? Well, Irving can opt into the final year of his contract and become a free agent in 2023. Or he can opt out and become a free agent this summer and either re-sign with the Nets or sign with a team that has the requisite cap space for less money. That is a doomsday type of scenario for Brooklyn because they are cap-strapped with 6 players owed $111 million in 2022-2023 on the roster. They wouldn't be able to make any other moves, aside from using their $10.3 million mid-level exception, and with a team hoping to contend, that won't cut it. The only other way to salvage the situation if Irving intends to skip town is through a sign and trade. That would help the Nets retain something in return. But those are rarely, if ever, of equal value. And the Nets aren't just looking for anything in return, they need players who can help contribute to winning an NBA title right away. Both the Knicks and Clippers were reported as potential suitors for Irving and could opt to make a sign and trade work. But what may be an even more interesting storyline is Irving reuniting with LeBron James in Los Angeles, after a somewhat nasty breakup in Cleveland that ultimately led to James deciding to head to the City of Angels. To facilitate a deal, the Lakers would surely have to send Russell Westbrook's massive $47 million contract back to Brooklyn, reuniting Westbrook with his former Oklahoma City teammate Durant, or to a third team like the Charlotte Hornets, who reportedly have interest in taking on Westbrook's expiring contract. Make no mistake, Irving and James have worked extremely well on the court before. With Anthony Davis, that may be an even more talented trio than they had in Cleveland with Kevin Love. But the Lakers already have an issue with their players being available. Davis is seemingly dealing with some kind of injury every season, and James is headed into year 20, having missed a decent amount of time in his last 2 seasons. Would adding Irving, a player who, let me remind you, only played 50% of his games with the Nets in the past 3 seasons, really be the solution to the Lakers' problems? There's no question that after an unbelievably disappointing season where Westbrook looked like a shell of himself, the Lakers are desperate to find a way back to winning basketball. But what's better? 82 games of a 40% Russell Westbrook or 30 games of 100% Kyrie Irving? In the end, it all comes down to Irving's willingness to commit to any of these teams. And even if he does initially commit, there's no telling if he'll change his mind. We saw that in Cleveland with the Cavaliers, and then in Boston with the Celtics, and now in Brooklyn with the Nets. It seems like everywhere Irving goes, he leaves a trail of severed relationships and broken teams. So any team should be hesitant to commit to him long term. Look, there's no denying Irving's unbelievable talent when he's on the court. But the key part of that sentence is when he's on the court. So could a potential deal happen? Absolutely. Could the Lakers come out as the victors in this situation if Irving ends up on the roster? Maybe. But history tells us that either way, any situation Irving is in ends badly.